There. All done. Making that video was pretty fun. I wonder how many people saw it. Wow, that's a lot. What about the short clips I've posted? Hello and hi, welcome back. Thank you. Thank you to all that watched my video and my silly TikTok clips. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. Now, on to the topic at hand. I am basically just going to be, this whole video ramble is just me defending Coco and Agott, especially Agott, because how I've seen people talk about a little child is just effing fucking crazy. Also, please note that this video is my opinion on things. I'm not making it to harass anyone, and I don't condone harassment. If I catch you and anyone doing that, I will personally disown you. Also, please note, while I have read the manga up to volume 3, I'm really only going to be covering the current episodes that are out so far, that being episode 1, 2, 4, plus the relevant chapters that those episodes have adapted. This will be spoiler-free for anime-only people, such as myself, so that means I'm not going to cover what the later chapters have revealed in Agott's backstory and her family life. So, how I'm going to structure this is I'm going to talk about how we see everything and such as in the context we see both of the girls, but we're going to their point of view plus other characters I see being criticized like Tetia and Kifuri. And then I'm going to be speaking on the differences in dialogue from the manga and anime from Agott and Coco's interactions specifically. And then lastly, I'm just going to speak on why, in my opinion, I think people are being harsh to basically almost everyone in episode 4 other than like Riche, Tarta, and Tarta's grandpa Nonola. So yeah, that's basically what we do. So basically I'm going to do how we the audience sees Coco. Now, on my script I made some jot dots, so I'm just going to basically just read out the jot dots and loosely read out the jot dots and some examples that I've noticed. Like, from the start, we see Coco is someone who is clearly passionate about magic, especially at like a really young age when she was first introduced to magic by the brim cap. Oh, excuse me, I burped. And the thing is, she's very passionate about magic, and she's also just in awe of magic in general, and she clearly looks up to others that wield it, like, like Agott, like Kifuri, like probably so many other people later in the series. She's also someone who's kind and considerate of others, and one of the main things we can notice that is literally the first scene of the anime when she's washing her clothes, like her soapy clothes, in the magical pond with the deer. And it's just like, she could have picked like any other pond because that pond seems to be pretty far away from her house. But no, she picked that one. And the reason why I think she picked that one was so that it could clean up the soap, and so that the deer could still, drink water. We also see that she's someone who's very cheerful and optimistic, or she tries to be optimistic no matter the situation and stuff. And, like, I think that's one of the reasons why, like, so many people tend to be on Coco's side with some of the discussion I've seen on, Reddit and stuff and other places, because the fact we do know the context of Coco, and we know Coco as a character and stuff. And also we know that Coco loves her mom deeply. Like, especially in episode 3, where we see flashbacks of her interactions with her mom, and bits of episode 1 where we see her interacting with her mom. Like the fact, and 2 as well, when we see her cry because she promised not to leave her mom alone. And she's crying because she broke that promise of leaving her mom alone. And in episode 3, how she literally cried because she literally learn how to perform her first successful, like, neatly drawn semi-sigil of magic in the daughter range from her mother. And just, oh, excuse me, and just like, we just see her love her mom so much. And also the fact she never gives up, even when the situation, like, is tough. And we can see that in the daughter range, because she could just easily quit. But no, she continued to do so. And even continued to try to get the herb again and again, even when it seemed like she couldn't. And also, we also see her as someone who's willing to learn all about magic. Her even requesting Keyfree to learn about forbidden magic early, and putting her all into her studies, like how we see when Keyfree gives her first lesson on how to make a sigil and what the sigil is. And we see her get fatigued easily, and even when she gets fatigued, she doesn't choose to go on a break. And, I think that's something that I really admire Coco for. Now how the audience sees Agott. Basically, we see Agott as someone who doesn't really sugarcoat her words when it comes to Coco and stuff, especially when she first meets Coco. She just tells her straight up, and she doesn't really sugarcoat it. We see her as someone who's very skilled at magic, as literally when she was introduced, we see her being able to perform levitation magic and practicing magic and stuff, showing her, she's pretty much skilled in magic. And also, her correcting Coco when she drew her sigil with Keyfree. We also see her as someone who's more experienced in magic compared to where Coco is and stuff, as well as, we can see in the framing of the shots and the paneling, and also the fact that she's more experienced than Coco, again pointing out the seal. And we also see her as someone who's very serious about magic and stuff, how she takes her studies in magic seriously, as the whole reason, as we come to learn later in the episode, one of her big qualms about Coco, when she tells Coco what it takes to become an apprentice, how much she studied for the role, and how many times of sleep she had to lose because of said studying to pass all the tests to become an apprentice, compared to Coco, to where, in her opinion, Coco was just given that and stuff. We also see Agott as a loner and tad bit withdrawn, like how we see her in the Atelier town, how she wants to go off on her own to look at, do her own thing, and how we see her want to eat, in her room and stuff like that. And she also sees, and stuff, how this is basically how the audience views her, and some of the stuff I've seen and stuff is basically someone who puts Coco intentionally in danger. I'm going to rant about that in a bit, because God, that frustrates me. That's a little child. Because I've seen people say, Agott intentionally tried to murder Coco during the Dada scene, and I'm like, no. And she's a child. And I'm going to explain later why I think that's pretty much stupid. And the audience also sees Agott as someone who gets angry and lashes out easily and stuff. And while that's semi-true that she gets angry, I disagree on how she, lashes out easily and all that jazz. And I'm going to explain this by how Agott sees Coco and stuff through all of my jot dots I made by watching the anime. Yee. So basically, she sees Coco as someone who doesn't take magic or the hard work in learning behind it seriously. And we can see that basically on how she speaks to Coco, and like during how she, like during her first meeting of Coco, and then her conversation with Tetia, and then, but still, she still gives Coco a chance to prove herself and stuff by literally saying, I'm going to make you take the test that everyone else has to take to get in. And even still, during that point, she gives Coco the guidance on the water shield she made, and she holds in her anger when Coco splashes the water on her, even like when she's still mad at her. Like, we don't see her lashing out at Coco immediately. And while some people can argue, oh, well, Keyfree was there, blah, 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 there's other instances where Agott holds in her anger and doesn't, quote-unquote, lash out at Coco when Keyfree is not there and stuff. And, like, we can see this as, even though she's angry, she still explains the test to Coco and even gives Coco her own self shoes from her feet. And during when she explains to Tetia where Coco is, she thinks Coco should be able to take the test like everybody else and not give special treatment. And she didn't have any intention to harm Coco, thinking Coco would, one, give up due to the high elevation, and also knows that her self shoes wouldn't take Coco high enough to be in danger. We also see that she doesn't like how ignorant Coco is, and how Coco is very unaware about the danger she put herself in. And also, again, after when Coco completed the test, when Agott was presented the diadem herb, she walked away from Coco, not lashing out or putting her anger on Coco, even though we clearly see her upset. And then in call, when Coco saw the brim cap and she's running towards the brim cap, she literally grabs Coco's hand and pulls her before Coco could go further, and asking Coco to explain herself. And also during when the dragon attacks, like, she literally prioritizes keeping everyone safe, including Coco, from the dragon. Even when running away from the dragon, she still stays close to Coco instead of running ahead. And also, we see her scold Coco for asking, for being very, like, enthusiastic about magic, and that moment scolding her when asking that question because their lives are literally in danger. A dragon could eat them. They could be killed. Or worse. And also, we don't see Agott as cruel because she calms down Tetia and stuff. And the only time where she actually lashes out on Coco was when, one, their lives were in danger and she was trying to draw the seal to break the maze so they can get out and be away from the dragon. And the only time she lashes out on Coco is when Coco touched her, messing up that spell. And in Agott's point of view is they might not have time to be able to, like, go the other way or make a new one because of the freaking dragon. And so in Agott's point of view, she had every right to lash out at Coco because like, they are in a life and death situation. And another thing, because people say, oh, Agott is angry, Agott is cruel, blah, blah, blah. When Agott corrects herself in her wordings, implying to leave, when she implied to leave Coco behind, and in my opinion, when Agott says, however, that doesn't mean other interpretations are valid, I don't think it means, oh, let's leave Coco behind. I think it means how Coco is how she refers to Coco as dead weight and stuff. And now, basically how Agott sees Coco in, episode order. She's literally in awe of Agott when she first meets her and is all blushy, like we literally see that. And literally during the Conceit of the Crown test, she basically uses how Agott completes the test at 10 to motivate herself to keep going when going to the data range. And when doubting herself, she also acknowledges how Agott might be right, even calling Agott special. And also when she ruins her shoes and stuff, she says, oh no, I got Agott's shoes all muddy. The reason why I point this out now is because of a dialogue change we see in the manga, which I will bring up later when we get to that point. And literally when Coco comes back from the diadem herb from the Dada range, she doesn't tell Keyfree that Agott sent her to the Dada range, and she gives the diadem herb to Agott as she wanted to prove herself to be a witch to Agott, because there was no need for her to prove herself to Kefri, as Kefri was already calling her, referring to her as his apprentice, or to any of the other characters as well. It was just proving herself to Agott. And she also holds no harsh feelings to Agott. Like how she wants to fix Agott's silk shoes before she even backed, and even restored them to how they were, and even fixing them when they got the mud on them, because, Coco is way nicer than me. I would have been petty as hell, and I would just be like, here's your muddy shoes with the sigil broken. No, she fixes her shoes to even better quality they are now, as we see in the manga. And also she wants to practice her sigil, her levitation sigil, to make them neater, so that she actually, gives it to Agott. And she also, hopes to become good friends with Agott. And, like, during when they were running away from the dragon, she tells Agott how amazing she is at drawing the fire sigil so quickly, and if Agott should teach her. Now, for some reason, I see so many people also shit on Tetia, and I'm just like, Tetia's a child? And so, and in her point of view, it's a life or death situation with a dragon, and also, she literally stops herself from saying something even harsh that she couldn't even take back. And Coco doesn't even blame Tetia for it in her internal monologue, agreeing with Tetia how it is her fault that she got everyone in danger. Like, my god. Now, I also see people shitting on Kefri, and, Kefri's point of view, like, in the anime at least, like, the reason why he didn't punish or scold Agott was, one, he didn't know that Agott sent Coco on the test. And, like, and also, like, why is he, like, not keeping on his students when they're in call? And I'm just like, it's just like, he knows that his students would be in town, and the town is literally surrounded by other witches who are adults, so he, like, it's not, like, and he also trusted them to at least let him know before they were going to go to the shop. Like, if he let Agott go on her own, that means he pretty much figured they're not in that much danger in that area and stuff. And also, like, sorry. And also, like, he didn't expect the Broom Cats to seek them out, or seek Coco out. And because, like, again, no one has seen them to the point where Tarta, or seen them frequently, Tarta didn't even know that was a brim cap and stuff. And that's why it's just like, why are people giving Kefri shit? Like, anyways, now I'm going to come back to basically the differences with the anime and manga chapters in terms of dialogue. Now, when it comes to the dialogue between Agott and Coco, because I'm only going to cover Agott and Coco in terms of their dialogue, I'm only covering the major changes in dialogue from the English translation of the manga, not any of the minor ones that, ultimately give the same meaning from the dub of the anime, because I'm only covering the ones that basically change the meaning, or change how, people personally could see their characters. So, in Chapter 4, page 442 in Volume 1, instead of Coco in the anime, like, oh no, Aruna got shoes, she says, now my shoes are all muddy-duddy. And, like, I feel like that gives, like, a different interpretation to Coco's character. It kind of, like, makes, like, not in my, like, obviously, my opinion, this is a literal child I'm talking about, but, like, it makes her seem, like, not self-aware that she got Agott's shoes dirty compared to the dialogue change in, the anime. Now from Agott in Chapter 4, page 146, also in Volume 1, Agott says, you're supposed to take the test before you move in. And, like, basically, it proves my point that, Agott and stuff didn't want to give Coco special treatment because now we learn, it's not like they live in the atelier for a while and then they have to do the test to become apprentice. No, in order to move, before you move in, you have to the atelier, or any atelier apparently, you have to take the test before you move in. And I thought that was personally, like, pretty interesting. Now, in volume 2 from Agott, in chapter 6, page 13, she says, just how you didn't mean to get us mixed up in this, and didn't mean to turn your mother into stone. And that's very different than from when Agott lashed out in the anime, because when in the anime, it was reversed. It was like how you didn't mean to turn your mother into stone, and how you didn't mean to get us mixed up in this. And the one thing why I'm like, oh, that's very, very different, because, like, it implies how what Agott is mainly mad at is Coco not only getting herself in danger, getting her in danger, getting Tetia in danger, and getting Riche in danger. And the stuff about her mother seemed to be very absent-minded, while at least I felt like how that was done in the English translation for the manga was more clearly than how some people have interpreted what Agott said in the anime. And the most thing that I've noticed that the anime had made less harsh was when Agott said, because, you know, in the anime, she said, let's hurry up and get rid of, like, this, like, dead end and stuff. I think that's how she said it. And how she meant the maze and not Coco. And how she said, well, other interpretations aren't invalid. This one, you can't really do that, because she just says, let's hurry away and get away from her. Here. I was going to say here. And you can't really, like, you can't, and to me, that's more cruel than, like, the dead end comment, because that implies, let's get away from her. I don't care if she is going to literally get eaten by a dragon, blah, blah. And again, I may be dramatic by this, but again, they're literal children. They're literal 12-year-olds and stuff. 12-year-olds are going to act like children because they're still children. Now, that goes into why the hell are people hating on literal children? And one of the main reasons why I think everyone is hating these children is the fact they act like kids. They all act like complex characters that are well written with feelings and emotions, and not like mini adults and stuff. And, like, it's one of the main scenes. And, like, this is just something I noticed. One of the main things I've seen personally is I've seen people have way more harsher comments on the female characters than how I've seen people criticize Griefrey in some discussion of episode 4. Now, I'm not pointing fingers of anyone at all and stuff, but it's just something I've noticed when it comes to complex characters that are female or children, and that they tend to be treated more harshly than to all of their male counterparts. And it's just one of the things I tend to see a lot in fandoms, and that whole thing is just not anything new, and sadly, but I think that could be one of the main reasons people are hating so quickly. Another thing is they don't have the context to Agott's character yet. Like, they don't know her backstory or her past when it comes to her family, or even later in the same volume for volume 2 and volume 3. Then again, I'm not going to spoil anything. This is only for anime only people. But we see that, in terms of that, we see a more deep dive into Agott's character and why Agott acts the way she does and stuff. And I think people are like, I was going to say being too harsh on Agott. And I'm like, well, some people are like, yeah, Agott shouldn't really. No, yeah, being too harsh on Agott. Because, like, again, at least in the life or death situation thing and stuff, they were in a life or death situation. And, yeah, anyways, yeah, that's just something I've noticed. Anyways, I don't really have a proper conclusion to this. I mostly wanted to share my thoughts and how I feel in general. Overall, I'm super excited, and I hope I was able to help some people be able, I don't know, vent their own frustration in this whole thing, or like, oh my god, I found like someone who thinks the same way. I'm not fucking crazy, and all of that jazz and stuff. So yeah. Anyways, if you want to support me further or like my art, I have a Ko-Fi page where I do commissions on. I also have an early access tier on Ko-Fi where you're able to see videos before I post them on YouTube, some behind the scenes like my art process with thumbnails, and also a social media shout out at the end of my videos. Maybe your name or your social media you want me to promote. And also, that tier is just $1 a month. Anyways, just please make sure to like this video and subscribe, comment down, blah blah blah, the normal YouTube shill stuff. And also, if you have any thoughts yourself about, this whole thing. Anyways, thank you for taking time to watch this, and I hope you all have a good day. Bye-bye!